tier lists. They are something that are definitely a staple on this channel, as I guess I was kind of built up around making tier lists. My most popular video on my channel to this day is my ranking every card tier list version 1, which has like 23,000 views to this day. And that tier list kind of put me on the map of YouTube. And since then, I have done many more tier lists, like ranking legendary cards, spells, epic cards. I've done a ladder tier list with every single card 3 times. But today, in today's tier list, we're going to be going back to our roots, and we're going to be ranking every single card in Clash Royale for the 3rd time. The last time that I actually did this tier list, I believe, was in November, and since then we have had a few new cards added to Clash Royale, and the metas have definitely changed a bit. So those new cards that were added were the Battle Healer, the Firecracker, the Royal Delivery, and of course the Heal spell was worked to be the Heal Spirit. So without further ado, let's go ahead and rank every single card in Clash Royale once again. There's actually 98 cards in the entire game. We are getting really close to that 100 mark. And you know what else we're getting kind of close to? 2,000 subscribers. So if you want to join the SolarFury squad, that's what I'm going to call you guys from now on, the SolarFury squad. Let me know if you guys like that. But if you want to join it, be sure to drop a sub down below. And also, if you enjoy the video, be sure to leave a like. This is going to be a very relaxed and chill video. So sit back, relax, watch me rank some cards, get a snack, get a drink, get some Mountain Dew, get some Doritos. I don't know what you guys like to do, but just sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. All right, you guys, so here we go. Here is the template for the tier list. Big shout out to this guy right here on Twitter. I'm not affiliated with him or anything, but this would have taken a long time for me to make, so I'm glad that I already found one. So yeah, big shout out to him for making this tier list. Follow him on Twitter, I guess, I don't know. But let's go ahead and start ranking cards. Also, one more thing to note is that usually the ladder tier lists that I do are influenced purely by stats, but for this tier list, my opinion is somewhat going to be taken into account as well, how much I like the card and things like that, but you're also going to be referencing stats as we go along looking at the cards. So to start out with, we have my boys, the Fire Spirits. Honestly, not that great of a card, not that good of a way to start the video. We're gonna put them in D tier. They aren't doing too well. They definitely need a buff or a rework of some sort. Next up, we're taking a look at Elite Barbarians. I think this is where a lot of people are gonna click off. But actually, I'm going to raise my ranking of the Elite Barbarians from past tier lists. I normally put them in F tier, but I will recognize the fact that Elite Barbarians do have some level of viability on some ranges of ladder, and for that, I will give them a C tier. The archers are actually going to get the same ranking at the C tier because they're a fairly average card. They're not too great, but they are not a terrible card either. Next up, we have the Baby Dragon, and the Baby Dragon is going to be our first S tier card. Currently looking at the Baby Dragon, it has a 32% usage rate and a 52% win rate. One of the most popular cards in the entire game, and for good reason, because the Baby Dragon is such a good card. Next up, we have the Bandit, and I'm gonna have to put the Bandit in the B tier. The Bandit is definitely an above average card. It pairs well with a lot of other cards, and it's very unique. It definitely deserves the ranking of being in the B tier. The Barbarian Hut is going to be in the exact same spot in the B tier because the Barb Hut, again, it is an above average card ever since they buffed it, and it's doing really well right now, especially in a lot of graveyard and Elixir Golem decks. The Barb Hut is something that is really solid. Next up, we have Barbarians. Barbarians are going to belong in the C tier. Their usage rates are a little bit subpar, but the win rate makes up for that. And the Barbarians are really good, especially in decks like Fireball Bait. And there's a new graveyard deck that's kind of serviced around that has the Barbarians in them as well. So Barbarians belong at the C tier. Next up, we have the Barbarian Barrel, the second most popular card in the entire game, belongs in the S tier. 33% usage rate, a third of decks in the game use the Barbarian Barrel, and it is a dang good card. I run Bar Barrel in most of my decks. I absolutely love it. Next up, we have the Bats. Bats also belong in the S tier. Again, they are so versatile. They can just be a cycle card for 2 Elixir, but they also work really well in situations on defense. They can also distract cards really well, like an Inferno Tower, so Bats go into the S tier. Next up, we have my girl, the Battle Healer. You guys know, I made a video talking about the Battle Healer a couple days ago. She's becoming one of my favorite cards in the entire game, and for good reason. She is a really good card. She has a 56% win rate, which is the same as the Barbarians, actually. So the Battle Healer is a dang good card, definitely belongs in the A tier. It's going to be our first card in the A tier. Next up, we're going to look at the Battle Ram. The Battle Ram, honestly, I'm going to give it a D tier. There's better options for a win condition in Clash Royale. You want my honest opinion. With the decline of Pekka Bridge Ram, the Battle Ram is kind of being a bad card as well, so the Battle Ram belongs in the D tier. There's so many better options like a Ram Rider, a Hog Rider, just so many better options than using the battle ram. Next up, we have the Dark Goblin. Belongs in the B tier, especially with this meta, which I feel like is going to be really swarm heavy. The Dark Goblin is going to be such a good card. It is so freaking annoying to deal with. Let me tell you, the Dark Goblin is so annoying to deal with, so it belongs into the B tier. Next up, we have the Bomber. I feel like Bomber is sneaky underrated, but it's not good enough to be above the C tier. It is definitely a decent card. It works well in a few Golem decks, but apart from that, not so much. But in those Golem decks, the Bomber actually works really well. Next up, we have the Bomb Tower. Bomb Tower is a surefire A tier card. The Bomb Tower has been really good pretty much ever since the Elixir Golem has come out, and it has stayed prominent for the longest time. 14% usage rate, 53% win rate. Definitely a very solid card inside of Clash Royale. And now I think we have our very first F tier card, which is going to be the Bowler. The Bowler has honestly been a bad card for a really long time. It's good at a few things, but where it is really destroyed is the fact of its really slow movement speed, its slow attack speed, and the fact that it cannot knock back both the princes, the Dark Prince and the Prince. Can't shut them down, which honestly kind of sucks for the Bowler. Next up, we have the Elixir Collector. This is going to be in the D tier. Elixir Collector used to be so good. Remember when it was 5 Elixir? Remember when it could be in your starting hand? Yeah, the Elixir Collector was good back then. It really hasn't been good since. Again, works in a few niche 3 Musketeer and Golem decks. Even there's like one giant deck where the Elixir Collector is decent in, but apart from that, it's just not that good of a card. Next up, we have the Inferno Tower, and to keep it real with you, the Inferno Tower is outclassed by so many other buildings, defensive buildings in the game, especially like the Bomb Tower being the big one. So Inferno Tower, it's not bad. It still does its job really well, but it belongs into the C tier. Next up, we have the Mortar, which goes into the D tier. It's been about a year since Mortar bait, and Mortar in general has been really strong in Clash Royale, which sucks because Mortar is somewhat fun to play. I kind of enjoy the Mortar, but it belongs into the D tier. Next up, we have Tesla. Honestly, not that much to say about the Tesla. It's better than the Inferno Tower, in my opinion, and statistically, it is as well. It shines in Expo, and it's just a pretty dang good card. Let me find the stats of the Tesla. So yeah, the Tesla is actually at a 4% usage rate, 43% win rate, and the Inferno Tower is 3% usage rate, 35% win rate. So Tesla better than Inferno Tower. I think it belongs in the B tier. Next up, we have the Expo. So Expo is a tricky one to rank because Expo in the hands of the right player can be one of the best cards in the entire game. If you put Expo into the hands of a guy like Lemon Tree, he will beat literally any matchup with 2.9 Expo. But Expo in the hands of an average player or slightly above average player like myself, it doesn't really go that well. So for that reason, I'm going to have to put the Expo into the B tier. It's above average and it's good in the right hands, but if it's not in the right hands, you can get destroyed with it. Next up, we have the Cannon card. Cannon card has been doing really well, especially in bridge spam. There's a bridge spam deck going around with Battle Healer and Ram Rider, and the Cannon card works really well in that deck. So we're gonna put it at the B tier. It's doing really well. I believe it has a really high win rate right now. It has a win rate that is about 57%, which is really, really good for the Cannon card. Next up, we have the Cannon card's counter, I guess, or it's equal in a way, I don't know, but the Cannon, and the Cannon belongs in the D tier. It's really only good in 2.6 Hog. They did buff the Cannon when they buffed the Cannon cart to give it more damage, but again, there's so many better defensive building options like the Inferno Tower, the Tesla, and the Bomb Tower, so there really just isn't that much of a place for the Cannon in the meta if you want my honest opinion. Next up, we have the Balloon. Balloon is so consistent. The Balloon is consistently good. It's good in Lava Loon, it's good in Balloon Cycle. The Balloon is so consistent. 6% usage rate, 47% win rate. The Balloon is so consistent. And that actually has to be the same with the Golem. The Golem is an interesting card because so many people talk about how the Golem is broken and things like that, how it does so much damage. Well, and while it does do so much damage and it is the tankiest card in the entire game, if you know how to deal with Golem, it really isn't that difficult, especially if you're running a card in your deck such as the Barbarian Hut, Tesla, or Bomb Tower, or Inferno Tower. The Golem really isn't that hard to deal with. Again, I'm not really good at it, but there are plenty of players out there who are really good with countering the Golem. Therefore, it belongs in the B tier. Next up, we have My Girl the Witch. Now, the Witch is in the same spot with like the E-Barbs. It's pretty good on ladder, but in grand challenges and crap, it sucks. So to balance it out, we're gonna put the Witch at the C tier, where it really belongs, I feel. Next up, we have the Clone Spell. Clone Spell is a very niche. It works good in Lava Clone, Giant Skeleton Clone. That's really about it. So it belongs into the D tier. Next up, we have one of my favorite cards in all of Clash Royale, which is going to be the Dark Prince. Now, I would normally put this in B tier, but because this is one of my favorite cards, and my opinion is slightly being taken into account, the Dark Prince for me belongs into the A tier. The Dark Prince is so good. It is my main, I guess, ground troop that I use in my graveyard deck. Most people would use a Knight, but I prefer using a Dark Prince, and Dark Prince is a card that I've gotten so good with, and it is a card that I really do love, and I really think deserves to be in the A tier. Next up, we have my girl, the Night Witch. Again, the Night Witch, for those of you that don't know, if you're new to the channel or you just don't know, the Night Witch is my favorite card in the entire game. And she's doing pretty decent in the meta. 8% win rate, 8% usage rate. If she had an 8% win rate, that'd be terrible. But at 8% usage rate, 47% win rate. Night Witch belongs in the A tier. She is still a really good card, a far cry from where she was like a couple weeks or a couple months ago, where she was like the best card in the entire game. But she still does well in Elixir Golem. She still does well in Golem. She still does well in Giant, Lava Hound. Why can I not speak? Oh my goodness. But she still does well in plenty of different situations. So Earthquake is interesting. Earthquake is really good right now. Before, it was usually like maybe a C tier, but now it's in the A tier. Earthquake is doing really well, has a 55% win rate and a 14% usage rate, which is pretty dang good. And the Earthquake does well against a meta that is going to be very building heavy with things like the Goblin Hut and the Barb Hut. Next up, we have my guy, the Electro Dragon. This is another card that belongs to the A tier. The E-Drag is a pretty dang good card in Clash Royale. All right, the Electro Dragon is super solid. That Chain Lightning is oh so satisfying to work with. It is so beautiful. I absolutely love the Electro Dragon. Cannot get enough of it. Works well in Golem, Giant, even Lava Hound, Elixir Golem, E-Drag. So good. Next up, we have the E-Wiz, another card that belongs into the A tier. All these cards are going into the A tier because they are all good cards. Really, the same thing applies with the E-Drag that applies with the E-Wiz. And also, they both just stun Sparky. Hey, that's a good bonus because Sparky's annoying as heck to deal with. Next up, we have the Elixir Golem. So the Elixir Golem has very similar stats to that of the Electro Dragon. But because the Elixir Golem really is kind of something I would argue that's high skill, I'm going to put it into the C tier because the Elixir Golem in the wrong hands can get you 3 crowned instantly because you give Elixir back to your opponent. But in the hands of a good player, the Elixir Golem is a really deadly card. But just to kind of balance it out, Elixir Golem will go into the C tier. Next up, we have the Executioner. You guys remember when the Executioner was like the best card in the entire game, like in September and October? Yeah, it's not really that anymore. It belongs to the D tier, definitely. Next up, we have the Firecracker. Firecracker is annoying as heck. Let me tell you that right now. But it belongs into the B tier because the Firecracker is a super solid card in the game. Let me look at its stats real quick. Firecracker, 6% usage rate, 49% win rate. Definitely doing really well in the meta. Fireball has got to go into the A tier. Fireball, one of the most consistent spells in the entire game, definitely has been ever since Clash Royale has been a thing. The Fireball has been like the staple spell pretty much. So Fireball definitely belongs into the A tier. Now, the Goblin Hut. If I were recording this video a week ago, the Goblin Hut would be probably in the D or F tier. But because I'm recording this video when I am recording this video, the Goblin Hut is going right into the S tier. Let me tell you, 23% usage rate, 57% win rate over the past 3 days. The Goblin Hut is surging into the meta. I feel a spawner meta coming, guys, and I'm not looking forward to it, but I definitely see it coming. So the Furnace. C tier. Furnace is all right. It's all right. Really, since Royal Giant hasn't been doing hot, Furnace hasn't been doing hot. Those two, they synergize really well. They go hand in hand with each other pretty much. So Furnace goes in the C tier. Fisherman is going to be our second F tier card. I hate to say it. Fisherman is such a cool card. It's just not really that good, to keep it real with you guys. Next up, we got Flying Machine. D tier. It's good in Lava Clone. Really nothing else. Freeze Spell. Got to be the same spot, D tier. It's good with some graveyard decks. Some graveyard decks run freeze, but most will run poison. So graveyard or freeze belongs into the D tier. Next up, we have the RG, not the Royal Giant, but the Royal Ghost. I'm going to put the Royal Ghost into the C tier. My man could use a buff right here, definitely. Royal Ghost, it's an all right card. Works good in Pekka bridge spam. That's about it. Next up, we got my guy, the Giant. Giant is consistently consistent, kind of like the Balloon again. Belongs to the B tier. Giant works well, so many situations. It's really straightforward to use. It's only 5 elixir for a pretty beefy tank, which is nice. So Giant belongs into the B tier. Giant Skeleton, C tier. It's pretty decent, but good players know how to go up against the Giant Skeleton, so that way the bomb doesn't totally wreck their push. Next up, we have the Goblin Barrel. The Goblin Barrel will remain into the B tier. When bait is good, the Goblin Barrel is good. Bait right now is okay, so the Goblin Barrel is doing okay. Now the Goblin Cage. Goblin Cage is, again, another one of my favorite cards. Probably one of my top 10 favorite cards in all of the game. But statistically, the Goblin Cage really isn't there. It has a 51% win rate, but a fairly low usage rate, which kind of sucks. So I'm gonna put Goblin Cage into the C tier. Probably mainly because of my personal bias, but that is where I believe the Goblin Cage belongs. Next up, we have the Goblin Gang. It belongs to the A tier. In my opinion, probably the best ground swarm card in the entire game. 3 goblins, 2 spear goblins, provides ground defense, can provide a little bit of air defense as well. Now the Goblin Giant is a tricky one as well, because this man has a pretty decent win rate. The win rate of the Goblin Giant is 53%, but its usage rate is only 4%. So I'm gonna put it into the C tier. Honestly, mainly the main reason the Goblin Giant is good is when it's paired with Sparky. You want my honest opinion and honest facts? Those are facts right there. Next up, we have Goblins. Goblins are actually decent. They have a 56% win rate and a 7% usage rate. They belong into the B tier. Next up, we have my favorite win condition in Clash Royale right now, which is the Graveyard. Graveyard, oh my goodness, the Graveyard is doing so well. And it's not necessarily because of the Graveyard itself, but it's because of the cards that surround the Graveyard and that work well with the Graveyard, such as the Baby Dragon, the Ice Wizard, the Goblin Hut, the Dark Prince, Poison, cards like that. That's what makes Graveyard so good in the meta right now. And next up, we have the newest card in Clash Royale, the Heal Spirit. The Heal Spirit is actually pretty dang good right now. If you want the honest facts, 9% usage rate, 54% win rate, definitely makes the heal spell a more viable option to use if you want the honest facts. Next up, we have a little bit of controversy right here. We have the Hog Rider. Hog Rider has a 7% usage rate, but a 39% win rate. Hog Rider, honestly, is average. A lot of people complain about the Hog Rider and how it is super strong, but really any building in your deck at all can deal with a Hog Rider perfectly fine. Or anything like a Mega Knight can deal with a Hog Rider, even just a Tornado to the King Tower. That counters the Hog Rider perfectly fine, so it belongs into the C tier. Next up, we have the Hunter. Another card that has been doing pretty dang decent as of late. Hunter belongs into the B tier. Okay, the B tier is getting really big. B and C tier are the biggest tiers right now. That's interesting. Next up, we got the Ice Golem, A tier. I don't think there's any debating that. Ice Golem is so versatile in so many ways. Next up, we got the Ice Wiz as well. Another one of my favorite cards because I play Graveyard. Ice Wiz is good. 11% usage rate, 47% win rate. Put that guy in the A tier where he belongs. Next up, we got the Inferno Dragon. So the Mega Knight is good, and usually when the Mega Knight is good, that means that the Inferno Dragon is good. But actually, the Mega Knight is doing better than the Inferno Dragon in the meta. I think the Mega Knight doesn't have as much independence or dependence on the Inferno Dragon anymore. So therefore, Inferno Dragon belongs to the B tier. Still a good card, but not truly exceptional. Now the Knight right here, this guy belongs in the A tier. Because, like I said, I use Dark Prince in Graveyard, but Knight is the primary tank in Graveyard decks. So a lot of people are using it. It has a 20% usage rate, so it belongs into the A tier. It's pretty dang good. Next up, we have My Girl. Yes, My Girl. The Lava Hound is actually a female. Lava Hound belongs into the C tier. Lava Hound has had its better days. It has a pretty decent win rate at 53%, but a below average usage rate at only 3%. Next up, we have the Lightning. Lightning is solid, B tier. Honestly, I can't say much about it. Now we have the Magic Archer. Magic Archer that got nerfed, but it did not get nerfed into the ground, I will tell you that. It belongs into the C tier. Magic Archer definitely still has some viability in the meta, so therefore I'm putting it down here in the C tier. Next up, we have the Mega Knight. Mega Knight is a straight up A tier card. I mean, there's nothing really wrong with the Mega Knight. 13% usage rate, 48% win rate. It's really solid in a lot of different situations, so it belongs into the A tier. Next up, we have the Mega Minion, another A tier card. The Mega Minion is so consistent, and it is consistently good. It works well in Golem, works well in Lava Hound, works well in really any situation. The Mega Minion is a dang good card. All right, next up, we have the 5th card that belongs to the S tier, which is the Miner. The Miner, even though it got nerfed, it was a very minimal nerf, and it still has a 32% usage rate and a 53% win rate in the entire game. Miner, is a dang good card. Next up, we got Minion Horde. D tier. Probably Minion Horde is the most counterable card in the entire game. There are so many cards that can counter a Minion Horde. It just doesn't really have a fitting spot in the meta. Same thing kind of is with the minions, except minions are a little bit better, so they go into the C tier. Oh, and now we have this boy right here, this annoying little boy, the Mini Pekka. I hate to say it, but it's an S tier card. Mini Pekka is a very good card in Clash Royale. It is very, very good, as much as I hate to say it. 20% usage rate, 22% usage rate, excuse me, and a 50% win rate. Mini Pekka belongs to the S tier. Mirror, F tier. It's not that good. Keep it real with you. So yeah, Mirror goes in the F tier. Musketeer belongs to the A tier. I feel like with the Magic Archer being out of the meta, a lot of people are going to replace it in their decks with the Musketeer, which will make the Musketeer keep climbing. It already has a 21% usage rate, but I feel like that can keep going up, definitely. Next up, we have my guys, the arrows. Even though I can't really call them my guys because they're an inanimate object, but they definitely go into the B tier. One of the better small spells in the entire game, definitely. Pekka is going to go in the same spot with the B tier. Pekka has definitely taken a decline. Actually, Pekka goes in the C tier. I hate to say it, but Pekka has been on the decline really ever since the past couple of months. Honestly, Pekka has been consistently declining in the meta. And next up, we have the #1 card in the entire game statistically, which is the poison spell. It has the highest usage rate out of any card in the entire game at 35%, and also a very staggering 53% win rate. There's just no denying the fact that the poison belongs into the S tier. It is a really good card. Next up, we have the Prince. Prince is an interesting one, because Prince is kind of hard to counter in some cases, but in other cases it just falls flat and does absolutely nothing. So therefore it goes into the C tier. Princess, B tier, consistently consistent. Same with the Lumberjack, B tier. Rage spell is honestly better than it has been in the past. It belongs to the C tier. All right, Ram Rider belongs into the C tier as well. I feel like I'm chugging through these cards, but this is where like they belong. This is where they belong. The Rocket. You guys know my thoughts on the Rocket. It can pretty much be a win condition if you want it to be. It belongs into the B tier for that. Next up, we got the Royal Delivery, the newest actual card in Clash Royale, because the Heal Spirit was really just a rework to the heal spell. But the Royal Delivery is not terrible. A lot of people make it out to be a bad card, but it's actually not terrible. C tier, not bad. Royal Giant belongs to the D tier. You want the honest thoughts. 2% usage rate, 44% win rate. A far cry from where the Royal Giant used to be, when it used to be one of the most dominant cards in the entire game. Next up, we got them little piggies. Them little piggies have been popping off as of late. Them boys are good. 6% usage rate, a 56% win rate. Them boys belong into the B tier. Really, really good. Royal Recruits, F. They're just not good. Next up, we have one of the most fun cards in Clash right now, the Skeleton Barrel. That boy got buffed, and that boy do be moving really fast. That boy be moving fast. Lightning speed belongs into the A tier, definitely. Next up, we got the Skarmy. Skarmy's consistent. B tier, definitely. It's a consistent card. It's pretty dang decent. Next up, we got Skeletons. I am going to put the Skeletons into the A tier. I was thinking about putting them at S tier, but Skeletons, for one elixir, you get 3 Skeletons, and those 3 Skeletons can do a lot of great things. Guards are going to go into the B tier. Guards, I feel like, are one of the most underrated cards in Clash Royale. They are a pretty good card, honestly. Guards are great. Guards are great. Giant Snowball, A tier. Not much to say about it. It's just a good card. Same thing goes with the Ice Spirit. It's an A tier card. It's pretty dang good. Log, S tier. I don't think there's any denying the fact that the Log belongs up here into the S tier. It is a pretty good card. No doubting that. 3 Musketeers are a tricky one. 3 Musketeers are a really tricky one because they have a very low use rate, but a pretty decent win rate. So I'm gonna put them at the C tier. I'm gonna put the Tombstone in the D tier. Now, I used to use Tombstone in my graveyard deck, but I swapped that out for the Goblin Cage because I feel like the Goblin Cage is so much more versatile. The Tombstone did work well for me though in that particular situation, and it can also work somewhat well in Lava Hound, but apart from that, Tombstone, it kind of just falls into the D tier. Next up, we got the Nato. Nato is straight up S tier. You cannot go wrong with putting a tornado in your deck. You can activate King Tower and Nato troops with splash damage and stuff. Tornado is just so manipulative. You can manipulate really any card basically, and it's such a good card. Rascals, C tier. They're average. Same with the Spear Goblins. They're average. All right. Next up, we got the Valkyr, who is a B tier card. Pretty solid. Pretty solid. Not the best, but pretty solid. Next up, we got the Wall Breakers. Wall Breakers are annoying to deal with as heck. They have a pretty high win rate, 55%, and they belong into the A tier. And next up, we have the Wizard. Now, the Wizard, I'm going to put it kind of in the same boat with the E-Barbs and the Witch. You know, it's good on ladder, but not good in grand challenges, so we'll kind of offset it with it being an average card into the C tier. Next up, we got Sparky. Sparky's decent. B tier, definitely. Next up, we have Zappies. I hate to do it to my boys, the Zappies, even though they buffed the Zappies or reworked them. They're still an F tier card. Zappies, man. It sucks to see them like this, but this is where they belong. And then last but certainly not least, holy cow, this is a long video. It's going to be really long. But we have the Zap spell, which is going to be in the S tier where it belongs. But anyway, guys, here we go. Here is a tier list of every single card in Clash Royale as of April 9th. 2020. Let me know what you guys think about this down below. These videos are normally controversial. My tier list videos are actually my most disliked videos on my channel, but they're also my most liked videos on the channel, so they kind of offset. But this is my opinion mixed in with some stats. So if you get mad, say you're an E-Barbs user and you get butthurt that the E-Barbs are C tier and not triple S tier, hey, that's your issue. That's not mine. But yeah, guys, that's going to wrap it up for today's Clash Royale video. If you guys did enjoy this video, hey, please be sure to leave a like. I greatly appreciate it. Because this video, it may not seem like it took that much effort, but just the fact that I have to record for like this long with talking this much, it's very tiring. So your support means everything. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe as well. I greatly appreciate that. But anyway, guys, this is SolarFury signing off. Peace out, guys. Have a nice day.